Hello and welcome to today's presentation on cybercrime. As you know, security is a layered approach, and at Falcon IT Services we believe that cybercrime prevention and awareness is one of the least expensive and best things that you could do for your organization to help prevent cybercrime and fraud within the workplace. So why do we need security training? 3 in 4 Americans have been hacked or have been victims of cybercrime. 90% of businesses have been hacked in the last 12 months, and of those, 77% have been hacked more than once. Last year, $1 trillion in intellectual property was stolen by cybercriminals. 600,000 Facebook accounts get hacked every day. 92% of top 100 paid mobile apps have been hacked. 30,000 websites per day have been hacked. There's an estimated annual cost of cybercrime at $100 billion US. There are 1.5 million cybercrime victims every day, and each year 233 million identities are stolen. So how do cybercriminals get access? As you can see by this pie chart, a majority are by viruses. There is also access from insiders. There is device theft, and then coming in at a smaller percentage is our SQL injections, phishing, and websites. As you can see here, the majority of hacked bank funds or transfers that are sent out to perpetrators of attacks are unrecoverable. Situational awareness is key in preventing cybercrime. Security is an individual as well as a business investment. Learn as much as you can to help prevent cybercrime. Individual training and awareness is an additional layer added to your company's existing hardware and software security infrastructure. So by investing in the time and effort it takes to train your employees on cybercrime, you greatly reduce the risk that a electronic crime will take place in the workplace. Now the big conundrum is security versus convenience. Of course, everybody loves convenience. It would be great if we didn't have passwords at all. That would be very convenient, but that's not very secure. Security and convenience are inversely proportionate, as you can see by this graph. The higher your security, the more secure you will be, but the lower your convenience. So if you are right here at the tip top of security, there's going to be very little convenience. Things might be hard to do. Okay. On the other end of it, if you want complete convenience, okay, it's going to be at the bottom of the security, okay, axis. So you have to find a happy medium. And IT is not something that is it's a canned product, or you know, it's different for every business. The requirements are different. It's not a one-size-fits-all. So us as a company, we try to meet with your management and with your ownership or executive personnel, and we discuss security, and our objective is to help your company find somewhere where you can be happy. Of course, you don't want to implement too high a security if you're a company that it doesn't need it. If you're maybe a baker or a small shop, and at the same time, you don't want to have too little security if you happen to be in a company that is dealing with people's private information, intellectual property, because that, neither one of these two situations are ideal for the type of security that I'm discussing. So again, if you're a retail shop manufacturing food, you can afford lower security. And if you're, let's say, a CPA, an attorney, or a medical facility storing patient records or confidential information, then you need more security. So it's different for each company. One of the most often overlooked facets of security are passwords. I know we talk a lot about passwords and you read about them in the news a lot, but it's often overlooked. If you look at the breaches when they show what the most commonly used passwords are, you'll see that people are still using, password with a $ as the S and a zero as the O, and they think that this makes it secure. No, there's a list of the 100 most commonly used passwords, and if your password is on that list, it would probably take someone about 3 seconds to hack you. So it's important to have a good password policy. This year in 2017, the National Institute of Standards has changed the way that they look at passwords. They used to require you to have complex passwords, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, special symbols. This year they changed that, and they figured, well, this actually lowers security because these overly complex passwords are not easily memorized. And in addition to that, by the time that people do start to memorize these passwords, well, the 90-day required password change period takes effect, and then you have to rememorize it over. So the effect that it had was actually that people were creating these complex passwords that took them a long time to memorize. So they were keeping them on a small piece of paper, either under the keyboard or in their drawer or someplace close to the computer that they were trying to protect, as a way of countering the fact that they either couldn't memorize it or that by the time that they memorized it, it was time to change it. So this year, the National Institute of Standards has recommended that people start to use password phrases, long phrases, 10 or more characters, preferably 14 or more, that are easy to memorize, okay, and that they are not changed frequently, perhaps once a year, or even not being changed at all unless you suspect that there is some type of foul play or that you've been hacked. A good example would be a phrase, for example, chocolate equals my favorite ice cream, as you could see here. That's something that after you've typed it 3 or 4 times, you probably will memorize it. So there's no need to write it down on a piece of paper. And therefore, the fact that it's in your mind, in your brain, makes it more secure. So again, 10 characters minimum, and make it a memorable phrase. And this phrase, of course, should not include information such as your names or names of your spouse or your children or birthdays, because those are things that, we'll talk about that later on, they can easily be guessed. Again, don't use the passwords that contain names, birthdays, pets' names, or any information that's available on social media. Don't use dictionary words followed by numbers. For example, a lot of people use baseball 1, 2, 3, 4 or baseball 1. Dictionary words followed by a number, especially when it's a date, are easily cracked. Don't share passwords across multiple servers. Don't use the same password for work that you have on your Gmail, for your bank account, for your Twitter. I know it's difficult, but you should have different passwords for all of these services. That way, if one of these services gets hacked and somebody finds your passwords, they will not be able to get into your other services. Don't use sequential passwords for different services. For example, you shouldn't make Google your password, my password 10, then your credit card, my password 11, then your work password, my password 12, etc., etc. Sequential passwords can also easily be cracked. Don't store your passwords under your keyboard, in your drawer, in your Outlook client, on your Gmail account, on a sticky pad or sticky note on your computer, or even password wallets. Those can be hacked also. The best place to store your passwords is in your brain, where it cannot be extracted. The second best place is on a piece of paper that's kept in your wallet or maybe in a safe somewhere or under lock and key. Be wary of shoulder surfers. These are people that are looking over your shoulder when you're typing in your password. When you use uppercase and lowercase and special characters, it makes it more difficult for shoulder surfers, because when you're typing, okay, you need to actually use your thumb to press down the shift key, and it's very difficult for a shoulder surfer to see whether you're pushing down on the shift key or not. So they don't know if you're using a capital or a lowercase, or they don't know if you're using, for example, the number 4 or the $sign. Never tell your password to anyone, including people from our help desk support. They should not be asking you for your password. You should not tell anyone your password. Not your boss, not your co-workers, not me, not anybody. When we reset your password, the password will require you to change it upon first login. And after that, only you know it, and you should not tell anyone. And lastly, don't use information that is easily obtained online as part of your password. For example, birthdates, names of family members, hobbies. All these things are easily accessible online. Anybody could find my birthday online. Anybody could find my address online. Anybody could find my zip code. So oftentimes I see passwords or important information that has zip codes, addresses, and these things can easily be not only guessed, okay, but if you input the information that you already know into a specific type of program, that program can try thousands of combinations in minutes, okay, and you'll see that with that basic information input, that these password cracking programs can guess your passwords in no time at all. Okay, as I've mentioned before, if someone knows some basic information about you, it's relatively easy to guess passwords. In the example here, the password bronson.fiona.1907. Well, it's lengthy, it has uppercase, lowercase, it has numbers, and it has special characters. This is normally a very difficult password to crack. If somebody knows nothing about you, okay, this password is very, very, very difficult to crack. Now, the way that password cracking works is, as you can see here, when you enter a password into the computer, let's say the password hello, the algorithm creates what's called a hash, and the hash is an indiscernible numbers and letters, okay, that is stored. Now, the hash cannot be reversed. In other words, if somebody gets a hold of the hash, they cannot reverse it and get the name password out of it. When you read in the news that there have been hacks, where passwords have been stolen, usually what they mean is that they stole the password hash functions. And when a hacker gets a hold of this, the first thing that they do is they run it against known common passwords. For example, the word password, the word baseball, baseball 1, and things like that. Now, if you use a common password, let's say hello, if the hacker using the word hello creates a hash, okay, then the two hashes, the one that was stolen and the one that he's created, match. So now he knows that since there's a match, that the password for that person is hello. Okay. Now, when you have these hashes on your computer, you could spend as much time as you want trying to hack them. And in the cases where a particular person may be known as somebody who holds important information, intellectual property, some type of secrets, or the person has a position within a company that controls bank accounts, things like that, then these become vectors for whaling attacks, or spear phishing attacks, which are targeted attacks. Now, let's say I am the CEO of a company, and my email account, or somewhere along the line, it was hacked, and they looked at my email account, they recognized my name, or they did some research and they found out that I'm the CEO of a company, and so they start to run some password guessing to see if they could match common passwords and get the hashing functions to match, but they don't. So the next thing that they'll do is they will go online and start to do a little bit of research on me. Now you can go online and get some very basic information such as my children's names, some important dates, my telephone number, and as you can see here, okay, the known variables are going to be the names of my children and family members, names of my dogs, some telephone number information, zip codes, and other information that they found out about me through social media or through online. The fact that I live in Miami, the fact that I like the Miami Dolphins, that I'm a Marlins fan, things like that. So once you input that into one of the hacking programs, the password cracking programs, they could generate passwords based on this criteria. So first they might try a combination of these names, then a combination of the names with special characters, and then the numbers. Once this criteria is known, okay, this password will be hacked in no time at all. So that's why it's important not to use information that's easily obtained in social media for your password. So what can you do to protect yourself at work? Well, for starters, when you get up to go somewhere and you leave your desk, don't leave your computer logged on. If it's going to be unattended, make sure that you log off. Do not store your passwords or any private information on your computer using the sticky notes programs or in Outlook or any type of insecure network folder where somebody else could come in and see that. If you need to have a secured folder on the network, okay, please call the help desk and let them know that you need a folder that only you should have access to, and we will help you set that up. And you could keep important or private information in there rather than on your desktop. If you receive an antivirus alert, immediately call and report it to the help desk. Our antivirus product is managed and it shouldn't require your interaction. So if you receive an alert of some kind or a pop-up about your antivirus, it's probably fake. Don't click on it. Just please call the help desk and let us know about it. Accommodate time for our technicians when they call you. If we do receive an alert and we need to speak to you or take any action, please give us the time and access to your computer so that we can remedy the problem. Read the alerts that pop up in your computer and please try to understand them. Don't just click on them to get rid of them. Okay, some of these things are very, very important. If you're working quickly and you are just clicking through things in a hurry, okay, that's a very dangerous situation because you might make a mistake. And of course, don't leave your password written down where it can be seen. It's, believe it or not, it's prevalent that passwords get written down on pieces of paper and are either left in a drawer next to the computer or even under the keyboard, where they're easily accessible by someone else. If you work, for example, in the accounting department, in the executive department, or you are in charge of very sensitive information, you should always keep your door locked when you're not in your office. If you forget, okay, it's a good idea to periodically check behind your computer and make sure that you don't have one of these installed. Okay, and what happens is if there's an insider, okay, that wants to steal information from you, they simply purchase one of these devices. As you can see, they start at $40 to $150 on Amazon. And what this device will do is you unplug your computer's keyboard, you plug this device, and then you plug the keyboard into the device. So this device acts as a proxy for your keystrokes. It receives the keystrokes and then forwards them to the computer. But it also keeps a copy of your keystrokes in its memory. And some of them have wireless capabilities where someone can then wirelessly access a log of everything that you have typed in your keyboard. Okay, so this is something that you should be aware of and look out for if somebody's been in your office without authorization, or if you suspect that somebody's trying to do something like this, it's a good idea to periodically check your computer. Also, if you see a Wi-Fi zone that you don't recognize, and that's also the sign that something may be awry. Okay, so let's talk about social engineering. So what is exactly social engineering? Social engineering is the use of social skills by people who are trying to obtain information from you. If you've ever been called by a scammer trying to get credit card information, posing as, whether they're a bank or something, by the phone, that's a type of social engineering. And common social engineering are calls that you might get from banks, from credit card processor, the IRS, the phone company, etc. So do not divulge the information. Instead, ask them for their names, their extension, and then call them on a number that you either have looked up on one of your statements or that you get online. If someone calls you and you have no way to really verify that they are calling you from where they say they're calling you, okay, then you should call them back. And if the caller ID says that they're calling from XYZ place, it's not necessarily true. Just like emails, caller IDs could be spoofed. Reduce the amount of information about you in Facebook, LinkedIn, and other social media sites. Now, of course, we all want to post our resumes and our accomplishments, but do we really want to post daily details, including the names and birth dates and all this other information, where we went to school? If you really think about it, that information is often used for backdoors in accounts. When you open up an account and you forget your password, some of them ask you security questions like what's the name of your dog? Where did you first go to school? What city were you born in? Well, guess what? That's either available as public information online, or it could be had through social media. So then someone can obtain that information and impersonate you. And once they impersonate you, they're able to call your phone company, your cellular phone company, say things like, "Oh, I lost my phone," and when they might have a new phone sent to them, and then they start to use that phone to try to get into your other accounts, because as you well know, when companies like Gmail and others need to authenticate you, they usually send a password code, or excuse me, a text code to your phones as one of the ways to authenticate, and that could be used against you as well. Again, don't give passwords or personal information to anyone, including our help desk support. Okay, they shouldn't need this information. If you need a password, or if you need, just type it in yourself. They should tell you, type in your password, please. Also, please do not give your computer to our technical support staff, ask them to do a task, and then walk away from it for 20 or 30 minutes, because if they get to the point where they need to log off and log back on, they don't know your passwords. So this is going to, hold us back. Careful who you add as a friend to your social media accounts, because when you friend somebody, they have access to even more information about you. And careful what information you post if you are either a business owner, a manager, or in a position where you have specific access to either financial information or sensitive information. Because this information, again, if you post things online and they know who you are and they have that information, they could use that as a basis or as a foundation for an attack. As you can see here by this slide, simply going to the internet, you could find my cell phone number, the address, my website, where I've lived in the past 20 years. I mean, all kinds of information is out there if you know how to look for it. And social engineers use familiarity. They pose as familiar entities, okay, after they've done their reconnaissance. Also, social engineering also utilizes um, a strategy of creating a sense of urgency. They don't want you to think about it for too long, because if you think about it for too long, you might draw a different conclusion. So they try to put pressure on you to make a quick and possibly irrational decision. So they try to make you nervous, anxious, okay? And so if you feel that somebody is rolling you into something or pushing you into something, then just step back, take a time out, and think about that this might be somebody that's trying to get information out of you, where you may not want to get that information. Also, they create hostile situations. We always try to avoid fights, and psychologically, social engineers know that. So they try to get us to divulge information in order to avoid a fight. So if you see that they're starting to create hostility as a way of making you nervous or to try to get you to divulge information, that's another telltale sign that you might be speaking to a social engineer. And of course, social engineers, they do their homework, they gather a lot of information, so that by the time they call you, they know a lot of information about the person that they're trying to impersonate or about the company, and they might have you fooled. So always, make sure that you are on the lookout. Okay, so viruses and malware, cryptographic viruses. Cryptographic viruses are some of the most dangerous viruses I have ever seen out there. Not only um, do they encrypt your data and lock you out until you pay a ransom, but they can also encrypt your network data. They can encrypt the data on other PCs in your organization. They could move into PC servers and even off-site storage and backups. Now, even if you pay a ransom, recovery is not guaranteed. The Interpol, FBI, and other agencies usually seek out these command and control servers where the keys are kept and where the viruses propagate, and they shut them down in order to stop those viruses from spreading. But once those servers get shut down, your ability to recover your data is gone with it, even if you pay the ransom. So these viruses are very, very, very dangerous, and often they can cripple a business. They often arrive by email and in attachment forms, or they can be downloaded from phishing sites. When you go to a website, if it's not 100% trusted, don't download ActiveX or other types of plugins. If you could see, the bottom bar right here is asking you to download some software or download an ActiveX control when you visit that website. If you're not 100% sure of the website, then don't do it. Okay, this is a sure way of getting a virus. This website, for example, is one that I accidentally ran into. I was doing some research for I believe it was a Sharp or Canon printer. I stumbled upon this website, believing it to be a fix for a printer error that I had. But once I examined it closely, I realized that it was fake. And if I would have installed this program thinking that it was the right fix, I would have probably had a virus on my computer. So be wary of programs that are fixes. Be wary of freeware. If you have to get freeware and install it on your computer, research it, find out other users what they have to say about it before you download it and install it on your computer. So how can we avoid these drive-by viruses where you get them just by simply surfing online? Well, Microsoft EMET is a mitigation program and exploit program that really aids in that. If you have EMET installed, you'll notice that little key. You probably have it installed, and if you've ever wondered what that little key at the bottom right of your screen is, that's EMET. What this program does is, if you have an exploit in a particular application, And exploits are things that you read about in the news, that there's a vulnerability, whether it's in Flash or um, it's in Adobe or Microsoft Word, where applications try to get in through these exploits. The EMET program is a tool that helps against those types of attacks. Also, aside from having EMET on your system, don't share data between secured systems and unsecured systems. For example, don't bring a USB stick that you've been using at home, bring it into your work computer, because that home computer, it's unknown what type of security it has or whether it may or may not be infected or not. So don't share data or with your clients or with friends, okay? Even if it's you know, online access like Dropbox, be very wary before you download um, any files from unsecured or unknown systems. Viruses can propagate by USB sticks, USB drives, DVD, and even cloud-based storage. So if you're sharing a Dropbox account or an online storage account with somebody who has an infected computer, you could bring that infection into your computer and into your network. It's a dangerous situation. We have a video on that, which is called Shadow IT, and you could look that up on our website. And that talks a little bit more about these types of scenarios. Viruses could propagate by exploits, and again, this is where EMET comes in, and that's something that you should have on your computer. So social media and online services. Social media and free services such as Facebook, Twitter, Gmail, and others, they want as much personal information about you as they can get. And guess what? So do hackers. So the less information you put out there, or actually, it's not about what you want to share or what you don't. It's about making sure that what you share out there is not what you're using to secure your business passwords with. Okay, don't put information, don't make your passwords have the names of your pets or the names of your kids or birthdays that are easily obtainable through social media. Don't post things that you would say only to a close friends. Okay, so you shouldn't post things about feelings, about money, because aside from, and I know that we're going away from the topic here, but I wanted to mention this. Aside from the security aspect, those things can be used to cyberbully people online. Keep sensitive data to yourself, especially any kind of information that could be used to impersonate you. Talk to your family and your friends and to your employees about what should and should not be posted online. So social media also can phish you. They could trick you into installing software or divulging information. And in this example here, there's a person here by the name of Andrea who wants you to believe that she has accidentally sent you a video of herself because she misses you. So what this is trying to do is it's trying to get you to believe that maybe this person sent it to you by accident, where she was trying to send it to her boyfriend, and you might be tempted to want to see the video. But when you click on it, you'll notice that then it's asking you that you need a codec, and if you click on it to download the codec and install it to see the video, that's not actually a codec, it's actually a virus. So you can also get phished and hacked through social media. So when you see things that are from people that you don't know or intended for somebody else and you think it might have accidentally gotten to you, don't click on it, just delete it. Don't click on the links, because they're phishing you through social media as well. So phishing, there's two types of. Okay, so phishing. What is phishing? The phishing with an F is where you go out and catch some fish and have a good time. But the phishing with a PH, not so much a good time. It's the practice of luring users to visit fake websites in order to steal passwords, PIN numbers, or other sensitive information. According to Wikipedia, phishing is the attempt to acquire sensitive information such as usernames, passwords, and credit card details, and sometimes indirectly money, by masquerading as a trustworthy entity in an electronic communique. The phishing emails are purportedly to be from popular websites, banks, online payment processors, and even IT help desks. Spear phishing is a little different because it's targeted, and you have to be wary of spear phishing if you work at a company and you have access to either financial information or uh, private or intellectual property information that, if stolen, could be the cause of monetary loss. If you hold such a position, there are always people that are going to be looking at breaking into your systems and having the access that you have, because they could use that to gain monetary advantage for themselves. And these types of phishing emails are more dangerous because they appear to be more legitimate. The person sending the email has obviously done some reconnaissance. They've looked up information about your company, about you, about your vendors, and they have a lot of information that they could try to impersonate others and try to trick you. Also, these emails will be targeted. They'll know your name, they'll know position, they'll know the information about you. So they will appear to be more real. They're not initiated by random hackers. It's not throwing out a big net and see what hits. It's a very targeted type of attack. And then there's whaling. Whaling is basically spear phishing, but for really big fish. You know, popular figures, movie stars, politicians, executives of multinationals, things like that. And the term whaling has been coined for the attacks on these types of individuals. So where do these phishing emails say that they're from? Well, the majority are fake emails that supposedly come from financial and e-pay organizations. You could see that that's a big chunk, 24%. I'm sure we've all seen password reset requests from our banks or from eBay or from PayPal. Okay, so that takes a pretty big chunk. The next is online stores and e-auctions, and then we have social networking sites coming in third. We have search engines, and of course IT vendors. Now, where do people obtain email addresses? This is called email harvesting. Automatic programs scour the internet looking for email addresses that may be embedded into websites. So if you have a website and your email is displayed on that website, that's one way that you could wind up on phishing lists or on junk mail lists. If you have a computer that gets a virus, or if you correspond with somebody whose computer gets a virus, you could get harvested also. You may be the safest person in the world, but if you're sending email back and forth to a person that is not safe and they get a virus, your email address will be in their computer's cache, and the virus may harvest it from either their cache, or it may harvest it from their phone book, and you will wind up in a junk mail list. Nowadays, unless you're off the grid, it's almost impossible to not be harvested in some way or another. Chain emails are one way for harvesters to collect email address. I'm sure you've seen them. Email this to 50 people or something bad's going to happen, and by the time it makes its rounds, there's thousands of email addresses on there. And of course, when you give your email address online to obtain freeware, documentations, or access to something. As you can see in our website, my email address, I put Miguel and then I put @falconitservices.com. This way, an automated bot will not figure that as being an address, an email address, but a human can figure that out and send an email. So for phishing, just make sure that you do not follow links from emails that are asking you to click on a website. If in doubt, and you need to visit the site, you can always just open a browser and go to the site yourself rather than following a link. In this very obvious phishing link, it's asking you to go somewhere, and then as you can see, the site, they didn't do a very good job of masquerading it here. It's actually a different site completely. Of course, be wary of banks, credit cards, the IRS, okay, when they send you unsolicited emails. And be wary of emails that use expiration notices, password reset surveys, or anything that is going to try to get passwords or personal information from you. Okay, so phishing prevention, you should always check the content of or the context of your emails. For example, if you receive an attachment from your boss and the attachment is entitled my school report, well, that's out of context. Or if you receive an attachment from your fifth grader and it's entitled profit and loss report year end 2017, that's out of context and should be looked at suspiciously. Also, it might be that the person got an infection on their computer, and sometimes viruses tend to propagate themselves through sending out bulk mail from the infected computer. Of course, use common sense and look things over carefully. It's easy to spot something fake after you have applied some analysis and common sense. And don't unjunk your own spam email. Please send your unjunk request to helpdesk@falconICTservices.com. Our technicians are trained to spot attachments and check for fake emails or malicious code. In this example here, you can see a couple of some of the more common mistakes that phishing emails have. One of them is the generic salutation. They generally will not address you by your name because they don't know your name unless it's a spear phishing or whaling attack. Another is it may come from an address that is not the purported address, even though this can easily be hidden or spoofed. There's an alarmist message. They always want you to do something quickly. They try to pressure you into taking fast action because they don't want you to have too much time to think about it, because you might have second thoughts, or you might actually think differently after you've had time to analyze it. And of course, there's always grammatical errors. Some of these phishing emails come from foreign countries, and where people do not have English as a first language. So if you read carefully, you might notice that there may be grammatical or spelling errors. There's always a request to verify, update, or change some account setting, and this is the part that they want. When they want to verify your account, they're always going to ask you to log into your account so that they can take your username and password. And of course, if you hover over some of the links, as you see here, the browser will display the true address that you will be taken to if you click on the link. So if you do that, you'll see that even though this particular email is supposedly from Intuit Payroll, if you click on it, it's taking you to another completely different website here. All right, so again, be wary of online auctions, social media, banks, the IRS, things like that. And be wary when they ask you for PIN numbers or passwords or something to verify. And again, in this email here, it looks pretty good from Wells Fargo, but if you notice, there's some bad grammar here, so that's a dead giveaway. And again, when you hover over the hyperlinks in these phishing emails, the browser will display what the true URL that you will be taken to if you click on it is. So even though this one is supposedly from LinkedIn, when you hover over the URL, it will take you. You'll see that it's going to take you to spandau.de. So you obviously know that that's fake. Another way to help prevent phishing is to always, when you go to a site, or if you click on it and it takes you to a site, always check the URL. If you notice here, this URL, it seems to be from PayPal, but it's not paypal.com, which is the real URL of PayPal. Somebody here purchased a domain called paypal-accounting-protection.com. So obviously there's so many different variations of any given name that you can have. So always be wary that you are going to the right site. Also, this one you'll notice that it's HTTP. It doesn't have a secure certificate, whereas you know that PayPal is going to be HTTPS. If you go to our website, for example, and you want to make sure that you are on our website and it's the real website, modern browsers will display the actual domain name in dark letters in bold and black. The rest will be grayed out. So the subdirectories are grayed, and the bold letters are what displays the real domain name. So you can see here you are on falconitservices.com. Another common way for people to fake their websites is to change letters. For example, the letter L could be substituted for the number 1, and it makes it look very close. The O could be substituted with a 0, or in this particular case, this might Falcon IP Services, which is a very similar name, or Falcon IT Services Support. Neither one of these are our sites, but if you're taken to a site like that and you're not paying careful attention, you might be tricked into a site that you think is one site, but it's actually another. And sometimes these fake sites actually look identical to the real sites. They're basically copies of the real site, so it's very hard to tell. So always make sure that you look at the URL, and if in doubt, check the certificate of the site that you're going into. As you can see here, this checking that the URL, the domain name is in black bold. Okay, you can see the real website here is www.halifax.co.uk. The rest is the subfolders and directories are in gray. In this fake website, you see that everything is in dark bold, so that tells you that there's something wrong. And this is probably something along the lines of anything to the left of the domain name could be faked. So for example, if I own the name falconitservices.com, I could create a URL that is fake1.myfakeaddress. I want to install fakeness.falconitservices.com. And if you make it long enough, the real domain is going to be all the way to the right beyond what's visible in the URL bar. So this is obviously a trick here. So again, if you want to make sure where you are, always look and make sure that the domain name is prominently displayed in dark, bold type. Again, here are some very common elements of a phishing website. We have a generic salutation. They don't know the person's name. They're writing in an unprofessional manner. It's a fake URL that they're taking to. It's visa-secure.com, which is not the same thing as visa.com. It's a different website. And they're urging you to take immediate action. When there's always a sense of urgency, you should always be wary. Okay, so another common phishing technique is to send some innocuous file attachments, such as a PDF. And when you open that, it actually has a hyperlink to a phishing site. And in this case, for example, someone sent a scanned PDF file, and when you open it, it has a button that will take you to this website right here that's being displayed. And if you go to that website, you're probably likely to be looking at a program that it wants to download. It might ask you that you need to install some software in order to view this document, and that software will more than likely be a virus. This is also very common with DocuSign. I've seen many times where you'll receive a PDF. DocuSign is waiting for your signature. You open up the PDF, and then there's a button that says click here to sign your document. When you click there, it tells you that you need to install some kind of software to sign your document, and these are actually also fake phishing emails. So clever viruses, okay, and they're getting more clever and more sophisticated each day. They can read emails on an infected computer's mailbox and create fake replies. So you might receive an email from somebody that you know, and even be a reply to something that you had previously discussed. And you know, these are very, very difficult to catch because it comes from somebody that you know. It's about a conversation you've already had. It's got familiarity. It's got all the elements that you will find trustworthy. The only thing is that they might be out of context, and that's how you're going to know. So, for example, um, you might be sending an email back and forth to someone discussing a contract or an agreement, and 2 weeks later, out of the blue, you'll get a reply from this person saying, here's the invoice. Well, it may be out of context for two reasons. Number one is that the person replied to you 2 weeks down the road and you weren't expecting that. Okay. And the second thing is that the person might be sending you a copy of the invoice where what you were dealing with you never might have agreed to, or you might have already received the invoice. So again, only by careful analysis, stop, think, and before you act, okay, can you avoid these types of um, phishing? And if you receive an email and you're not expecting it, the best thing to do is to pick up the phone and contact the person, or send an email to the person and say, hey, I've received this email from you today. Did you send it? And I'm sure we've all seen where some of our vendors or someone will send an email saying, if you received an email from me this morning about blah, 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 and there's an attachment, please don't open it, it's a virus. Well, by the time they send that, it's too late. So the best thing that you could do is, again, analyze it, use some common sense, and don't act on it quickly. And if needed, contact the person first and make sure that they did in fact send it. Well, thank you very much for attending our presentation. And again, if you have any comments or questions or feedback, please feel free to contact me at Miguel@falconitservices.com.